Uh,
There.
I will take the minutes.
Hi, welcome to the CEUCC Commission Energy Use and Climate Change Commission October meeting. We're gonna go through, introduce the members of the commission, and then if there are any public attendees, we'll give them a chance to introduce themselves as well. So I'll start. Ramon Bueno. I live in the Brick Bottom District. I've been a commissioner for a number of years. I forget how many, and glad to be here. Larry?
Thank you, Ramon. Larry Yu. I am a resident of Davis Square, and I've been on the commission for, I don't know, 5 years, perhaps, something like that. And excited to be here. I have handed over the reins for this evening's meeting to Ramon to preside, as I was unable to attend a briefing meeting, so it was better for him to preside this evening. How about you, Courtney?
Hi, I'm Courtney Coslow, live in Magoon Square in Ward 5, and sometimes we say what we do. I develop affordable housing with a focus on sustainability. And Commissioner Wood? I'll go to you, Commissioner Russo.
Hi, everybody. Amy Furusawa. I'm commissioner also in Davis Square. I've been on the commission for 2+ years now. And by day, I work at HRNA Advisors and do a lot of climate adaptation, mitigation, and environmental justice work. Julie, you're with us?
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. I'm on my phone. Always takes forever to find the unmute to come on the phone. Julie Wood. I live in Teal Square. I work at Charles River Watershed Association, doing climate resilience and climate adaptation work there. And my pronouns are she, her. Who is next? Christine?
Christine?
Yeah, sure. I'm Christine Blaze, Director of Mayor's Office of Sustainability and Environment and ex officio to the Commission. And I'll pass it to my colleague, Josh.
Hi, folks. I'm Josh Eckhart-Lee. I'm your sustainability planner. Use he, him pronouns, and I'll be your admin for this evening in lieu of Julia Damiano.
I see we have a couple of guest participants. If they would like to introduce themselves, I see Tom King. Would you like to go ahead?
Yes, thanks. I'm Tom King. I live in Davis Square in Somerville, and I attend on behalf of various climate groups that I work with and the Somerville Community Growing Center. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. I see Seda Schulman.
Yes.
Hi.
I think we're going around and saying names, and what was the other piece, Ramon?
Where we're in Somerville, they're located as sort of a minimum shared information.
Okay, perfect. My name's Seda and I'm in West Somerville. I'm a student at Tufts.
I see another Wilson.
I believe that this may be.
I think this is a note-taking bot.
I see. I gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Seeing
Councilor Wilson.
Seeing no additional guests, we have a sizable agenda today, so let's move on. The first point was a staffing update. Who will be doing that one?
I can take that one. So I think, as folks may have heard, Eric Larson's, he's our former energy manager. He was our first resignation in 13 months in Office of Sustainability and Environment. So we had a really good run. But that position is currently vacant now. He went on to a really awesome job. So he will be missed, but we're excited to go out and start hiring and recruiting for a new energy manager. And we're currently updating the job description and we'll send it to HR very soon. Working with Infrastructure and Asset Management and Department of Public Works, who are folks that work really closely with that position. And then we also have a new resignation that was our environmental policy manager, Julia Damiano, who's former liaison to the commission. So Josh has kindly offered to step in this evening, while Emily Sullivan, the climate change program manager, is attending a previously scheduled event with Tufts University students on climate change. And for the interim, she will be the interim liaison to the commission until we fill the policy manager position. And we're working with intergovernmental affairs to help update that job description and get that posted as well. So we're sad to lose both of them, but looking forward to this next chapter for OSE. And then we are also going to be hiring an intern to help do our 2022 greenhouse gas inventory. So in a new way that we haven't tried before. We have lots of training materials that we got last time around from our consultants so that we were able to do it in-house in the future. So we're really looking forward to that. And then finally, another staffing update is that we received a Mass Empower grant earlier this year to fund a 2-year position for an energy advisor and provide micro grants to qualifying households for energy efficiency projects. And we have extended an offer to somebody. They'll be overseen by the residential decarbonization program manager and are expected to start October 28th, pending, HR qualifications, things like that. So we're really excited for them to start. I think this is a really important role that the city can fill. It's something that, I used to do in the housing division, for part of my work, and it was really fun. And it's also very complex too, because no house in Somerville has the same problems. So and when you open those walls, you never know what you're going to find. So I'm looking forward to her joining the team. And with that, I think that concludes our staffing updates.
Okay, thank you very much. Looking at the agenda, there's grants, climate forward, buildings, administration, policy, and so on. So let's move right on into the grants section. I see we have electric vehicle supply equipment initiatives and public comments, if there are any.
Given that I'm here in lieu of Julia and in my role on your Office of Sustainability and Environment, lead our EVSE and general EV support work, we thought it would be useful to share a bit of what I've been doing recently. There are 2 major funding mechanisms out there that work to expand EV charging, in particular DC fast charging across the country. That's the Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Grant and the sort of national version, which is called NEVI. We have joined in with the Mashpee Wampanoag and 3 other local municipalities on a CFI grant application, which in September, that explored 3 potential locations for combination level 2 and level 3 EV chargers across 3 different lots in Somerville. 2 where there are existing level 2 chargers at the ice rink and at Lombardy Street, and the 3rd location, which is at Foss Park, which is right by 93 and is a sort of key amenity that we think would be a right spot for this kind of infrastructure. In support of that, we've also tried to cast a wide net and are working with MassDOT's NEVI team, which is Weston and Sampson Engineering. MassDOT was awarded almost 100 million to do this work and is selecting sites across the Commonwealth now. And when we met with those engineers, we thought that that Foss Park opportunity would also be a potentially successful NEVI location to explore in case the CFI, which is a very competitive grant program, is unsuccessful. So we're exploring that location now. We're exploring some of the tax credit funding mechanisms, which is very exciting, and I won't go into this evening. But those are two really robust and exciting opportunities that we're exploring right now for EV charging across the city.
Well, that sounds great. Any comments from the commission? I mean, one question I had was, and I may have seen this before, are the location of existing and then upcoming chargers, is there like an app or some easy location on the web to identify them?
There is a map of our existing chargers on somervillema.gov/electric vehicles. So that shows and can be zoomed in and is interactive to show you the locations and any notes. For instance, we put a note on the Day Street lot to say that it is sometimes closed Wednesdays during the farmers market. But that is not showing potential locations. Those were explored in a siting strategy that we did with CDM Smith and VIA over the last year, and that's sort of an internal staff document that we use.
I'd be curious if any other cities that have done enough charging stations, if they have some kind of app or something that tells people how queued they are, you know, so that you can see, oh, that one's going to be a while, let me go to another one.
Yeah, well, so ChargePoint's app
they have that.
will tell you that for the ChargePoint stations that aren't just municipally owned and operated, but the ChargePoint stations that are in private lots across the city. And there's also a mapping service called PlugShare, which is not proprietary to one charging system and shows you Tesla charging ports and Juicebox ports and all the sort of available ports and whether or not there are any restrictions to access.
Thank you. Anybody else have a comment or a question?
Can you perhaps talk a little bit about the partnership with Mashpee Wampanoag and how that came to be and what's the nature of that partnership?
Of course. So when we were exploring grant opportunities and thinking about the CFI program as one of the sort of most compelling options, we had originally joined in with several communities and the Metropolitan Area Planning Council on an application from the last round that was not selected, and in the second round was also not selected. And so in the effort to be as successful as possible, I coordinated with one of ChargePoint's resellers, Voltrek, who was bringing together a coalition of communities to advance these sort of dual level 3, level 2 chargers. And it was ourselves, Everett, Brookline, and Watertown who were approached and were interested in the program. And the Mashpee Wampanoag had a slightly different approach that they were taking, but one that we felt was really compelling and one that Voltrek saw as a really possible strong opportunity for sort of collaboration.
Thanks. I see we have another participant, Ben Capraro. If you would like to introduce yourself, name, and maybe what part of the city you live in.
Hi, I'm Ben Capraro. I in Winter Hill, between Lagoon Square and Winter Hill. Pleased to observe the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. If anybody else has a comment on the grants and electric vehicle chargers, public or commissioners, otherwise we'll move on to the next agenda item.
I have
which
a
is
quick question related. Sorry, Ramon.
No, go ahead.
Can you talk a little bit about just the site selection process and what were some of the criteria considerations that went into the process through which you landed on the 3 sites?
Of course, yeah. So we spent the last year working with CDM Smith on this siting strategy, and they developed 2 metrics, a community score and a commercial score that took into account proximity to existing charging stations, density of multifamily housing, proximity to business districts, and EJ community status. And weighted them across different quartiles or as a binary, and then found a series of locations that we had sort of looked at as close to existing electrical panels, and went to those sites, evaluated each panel to see if they had water damage or what their upgrade needs would be, and then plotted all, I believe it was 37 sites that were evaluated, including our existing charging spots. The reason that these 3 locations were picked was, first, we have very few municipally owned sort of parking lots, so there's not a ton of choice, but also that both Lombardi Street and the ice rink are 2 of our most highly used existing charging locations, and where we see a sort of big gap between the demand and the supply that we provide. And Foss Park being so close to 93 and being such a sort of rich cultural and community amenity, thought that this was going to have a lot of positive co-benefits, including potential expansion to the fire station at 299 Broadway.
Good. Anybody else? If not, then next topic is on climate forward. We're going to have a look at the review. We're going to review and discuss the climate forward memo, which hopefully we have seen before. Let's see.
Yes, I can share my screen if that's helpful for folks. Would that be good? Okay. And then I can link to it. It is posted publicly on our webpage. Let me put it in the chat. I think I should be able to chat everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. And let me share. Okay. Okay. Can folks see the memo?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So this was in response, and I'll do my best to go through and answer all the questions. And then if there's any others, we can feel free to discuss when Emily returns next month. But these questions came from commissioners, and we've responded via the memo. So the first question was, what reflections do you have about the process of conducting the climate forward planning process? So we spoke in here in detail about planning the kickoff event, which I think most folks here were present for. It was the event that was held at the Armory, and it was called Moving Somerville Climate Forward. It was like a speaker event, and also kind of mingling with food and posters. And I think we did a debrief as a commission afterwards, and commissioners were all commissioners at the time were at the event and helped us kind of do crowd management and interaction with the posters. And it was, I thought that really worked well. And we took that piece of that, and that helped to inspire the April 2024 Imagining Somerville Climate Forward event, where we were launching the plan itself. So we tried to take best practices from that event, and then we also learned from that event and things we could have done differently, things that the commission brought up, things that we sort of noticed as staff and debriefed on, and we tried to sort of update the April event. And I think it worked as a result. The event in April, I think, compared to October, there's 2 things I think that are notable. First one would be that attendees at the October event were all like very familiar faces. And it was a stated goal at the beginning of this, our vision statement. We wanted to include everybody, and especially people that we didn't get to talk to the first time around. And by the time 6 months had gone by in April, we had 200 folks show up at Greentown Labs, and it was almost entirely all new faces, which was really exciting. And it's just a testament to the commission's outreach, and I think the efforts of the community engagement specialists and all the folks in the department that are tirelessly attending outreach events and building these community relationships. I think another thing that's worked really well too is that we've circled back with these groups. So anybody that we engaged during that 6-month time period, we reconnected with after April and said, okay, this is how you helped improve, this is how you helped inform the plan, and this is where you'll find your feedback in the plan. And, let's talk about how we can move this forward together. So I think it's, and folks have said it was, folks have, consistently told us it was like the coolest climate event they ever went to. So, so I think we learned a lot in that interim. And I think, so that was our response for the first question, and maybe I'll just pause there to see if folks had anything else to add before moving on.
Any comments or questions on that? We have a lot of questions on the memo, so if you do, say it now. Otherwise, let's move forward on the next ones.
Okay. Right. So next one is, to the extent you're comfortable sharing, would love to have a frank conversation that can inform the next update, build on reflections you shared during the webinar. Specifically, what do you think worked well about the engagement process? Oh, I kind of just answered this a bit, but you did a ton of different types of outreach, which ones were most successful. And just to put some numbers on that, we conducted 32 focus groups and informal interviews, and we received nearly 600 responses on our community survey. And then we included a sort of a summary on page 20 and 21 of the Climate Forward Plan for more in-depth analysis. And I think I would just note that, it's good to reflect on this now because it can inform, I think, our efforts as we start to implement Climate Forward, but the next plan isn't scheduled for another 10 years. So, things might look totally different then. They might look the same. So at least, we have these things immortalized for now, and they can help inform efforts as they ramp up during that time. Where did we get stuck? I think, of course, capacity constraints. It's always an issue working for a municipality. We have limited resources. So I think that's probably the main thing. And then also contacting like hard to reach groups. I think we still struggled with getting folks to complete the translated surveys. So, we acknowledged that. We worked really hard to pivot several times during the outreach process. Each time we sort of tried something and it didn't work, we were, constantly connecting with leaders in the community that are engaging with these groups and saying, okay, how do we best connect with people? And I think the thing that we took away from that was it was really helpful to look at the city of Somerville is like prolific with our surveys. We're constantly doing surveys, and we understand this, and we also have heard from folks in these like in environmental justice communities that, okay, we've answered enough of your questions. You kind of know where we're at. Let's start to see the work here. And that helped inform the decision to extend the timeline for when the next plan would be drafted so that we could really focus on implementation. It also meant that we were able to dig into other surveys, maybe some that were about housing, some that were about socioeconomic questions, some that were about budgeting, some like the happiness survey. And we were able to glean from responses that were about buildings and transportation or natural resources, things that would directly inform Climate Forward without putting the label of this is a survey about climate change on it. Because if we did that, then it might not capture people's attention, because I think it's perceived, and in some cases it is, not as pressing of an issue as other real consequential things that are going on in people's lives. So we acknowledge that, and we're constantly trying to improve communication and strategies there. So we've done lots of multilingual efforts, and I think it's a department policy to not create any public materials if they're not going to be translated. So, we try to use plain language, and I think we're just going to try to keep improving over time. I think that was long, so I think that kind of summarizes what we were saying, but happy to talk more if anybody has any questions.
The one thing that occurred to me when I read this is that to the degree that the city, for example, has these district meetings and then the citywide meetings, and then they have one for Spanish speakers or Portuguese speakers, and to the degree that the manner in which they go about doing their outreach can be compared to or piggyback to how we do things, you know, especially for those targeted groups, you know, there might be some additional, I don't know, links or contacts that are made when they do that. I don't know. I've been to some of those citywide, you know, like Spanish language meetings, and you know, they do get a certain level of attendance. So I'm curious if they're doing something that, you know, could be sort of
Yes, I have to
dig
go
into.
off camera, but I'm still here and I'll answer.
Yeah,
Yes, we are going to be at those meetings coming up. I think they're happening this week and next week.
Anybody else has a comment or suggestion on this item, whether from the commission or participants, public attendees? Okay.
Okay. All right, I'll go to the next one. Let's see, and any reflections we should memorialize for the future? Yeah, I think I sort of answered that one. And then the next one is, could you share a bit about OSE's game plan for implementation? Yes, excited to do so. It was let's see. Oh, right. I think I explained these two, where we've, you know, gone back to the groups that we asked to provide feedback in the plan. And we are also working internally with the mayor's office to create the climate forward task forces, which would be aligned with the 5 topic areas of the plan. So that's in development now, and once I have more information about it, I'd be happy to report that back to the commission.
And speaking of the commission, number 6, where can the commission help?
Yes, of course. So I think the commission is helping a lot. It has been helping a lot recently with the update of the ordinance, and then has always been helpful when we have decision points, and helping to advise and engage the community. One of those, there's so many examples of it just from the past year, but one of them that's a constant is with the community choice electricity program, housing policies that have come up that we've commented on, helping with grant letters of support, and getting the word out about efforts that we're doing and attending events. So it's always really appreciated. I think one of the things that we put together in with the consultant for Climate Forward was those meeting in a box things, where we had like a kit, and the idea was that we would like train commissioners on how to use it, and then you could just pick up the box and run a meeting, on your own. So I think that didn't work. We didn't have any uptake. So, if that doesn't, I think it's fine. Like if it didn't work, it didn't work. But it's one of those opportunities, sort of like what we had with the environmental justice community engagement, where we could say, okay, like maybe this wasn't the right way to go about it. What would be a better way for members of the commission to help us engage the community? I think, Josh, what do you happen to know the number of the public meetings that OSE is attending? Naomi just said it earlier, and I'm blanking on it, but I think it's more than 30.
And we're at all of the sort of ward meetings that are being held this fall, including the Portuguese language one and other sort of multilingual sessions.
Yeah, I think in those alone, I think there's 11 community meetings, and then we're attending at least 19 others. And then there's a couple that we won't be able to attend just due to capacity, but we are trying, and that's not even including OSE like focus groups. That is on a whole other level this year too. So that's, I mean, including those, we're getting around 50 at this point. So we could use all the help we can get from commissioners if folks are interested in helping us with focus groups, with attending these outreach events, talking with people in the community, talking to your neighbors at like city events that are coming up. The season's about to come to a close. There's about a month or so left, not quite. But maybe for the spring, we can kind of talk about like how we can support commissioners helping us with engagement. But otherwise, I think, we're really solid on the advising piece. So, we'd look to you guys to let us know how we can help in the future.
That's a lot of meetings. One thing that I know, that just speaking personally, I've been able to attend some things like that, but we're all busy. So being reminded of upcoming meetings that you feel either OSC is participating in or might not, but that it'd be of interest or value to also to have commissioners who can attend to think about going. Just reminding us is a good thing, because everybody's really fractured and busy. In the monthly meetings, it'd be good to get a preview of, like, in the next month or two, these are key meetings that we could use participation. So thanks. Anybody else has a question or a comment, whether a commissioner or in the public?
I think I would just add on the meeting in a box point, I would just add, like, I'm not sure, like, I fully understood what I was supposed to do with that. I mean, I was like, do I have to go then, like, convene my own meeting of some people in the community and then bring this, or would I be assigned something, or I didn't really know what the next step was. So, mea culpa, I probably could have done more there.
Yeah, I think the idea, and I've been a part of this in other communities that I've worked in, like typically, especially in communities where there's not a big sustainability office, but yeah, there are residents, and I think a good example is the Climate Coalition of Somerville, right? Like I've been to fossil fuel free meetings when they used to meet in Somerville. There's like a couple different groups. So it's like taking these materials and saying, hey, can I talk to you guys about this at this upcoming meeting or something like that? Or I even know folks like in Somerville that have, and not saying that anybody has to do this, but there have been folks that we volunteered with in the past that have like opened up their homes and invited people in their communities and have said, hey, this is my heat pump, let me tell you about it. So that's like a pretty it's something that works for some people, it doesn't for others. So not saying that we have to do that or anything, but I think that was the intention with the meeting in the box. And if that doesn't work, that's okay. And we'll figure out what works best for the commission. But I think, maybe brainstorming that, over the next couple months before, I think events really start kicking off in April and they go through the October. So maybe we can try to think of some ways between now and then for communication and for, how to make it fun and easy for folks.
Yeah, I know for my end, it was a matter of I share part of the sentiments that Larry expressed, but also depending on the month, there were a few months where one is just pretty full, and it wasn't clear how much training in using the tool it requires and how much time and so on. So unless one already had a meeting plan, that you could say, okay, let me see how I can use this tool to make the meeting more productive or more participative. That was an issue that, it's like, oh my God, do I need to spend a few hours figuring out how to use this thing? Yeah. So,
yeah,
but
I mean,
so,
yeah.
but it's good to see
and
that.
If that's too much, then that's too much, and we can maybe have like levels, where if somebody wants to commit more than an hour and a half a month to the commission, we can build something for them. And if that's an extra hour, if that's an extra 2 hours, if it's an extra 5 hours, we can try to figure that out. And I think it's sort of similar with, I think we're sort of in the same place with the subcommittees right now too. So we can do some soul searching over the next 6 months or so and try to figure out what makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, yeah. Any other comments from anyone? Commission or outside? All right, so then let's move on.
Okay. Beyond the strategies and actions listed under each topic, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to link to the Climate Forward website because I keep referencing it, but just want to make sure that folks can pull it up. Beyond the strategies and actions listed under each topic, love to hear from Emily and Christine about how relevant city departments are engaging with aspects of the plan in their day-to-day, for like zoning, residential electrification, permitting. Yes, I'm happy to report. Daisy wants to go outside. I'm happy to report that all departments are really engaged in the plan, and we're engaged from the ground floor. So, we have the benefit of having 6 years between when the last plan was released and when this plan was released. So we've been cementing those relationships over time and really cultivating them. And those departments themselves typically have folks in them that are assigned to be liaisons. And it's really fascinating that a lot of the people that wind up being assigned a liaison position to OSC, because our projects are just like, there's a lot of them and they're like a little strange. So usually they try to assign somebody to that we are like they're our point of contact, and then they can kind of relay the information out to the department. And it's been so helpful and really has revolutionized the way that we do our work. And I think Mayor Ballantyne's leadership has been a critical component of that, because it's the first thing that we're talking about when we're talking about infrastructure and asset management. It's the first thing that we're talking about when we're talking about transportation and buildings and all of these things, or one of the first things I should say. And, it's how can sustainability be included in those first conversations when we're talking about that. So, and where if departments don't have somebody that is appointed a liaison, it's actually kind of hard to think about a department that doesn't have one at this point. I think almost all departments do, which has been really helpful. And a lot of them have sustainable background too, whether it be, they were in the sustainability club at their college, or they have a certificate or a degree. So it's really nice to see how the team has really kind of fleshed out even beyond OSE, and how it impacts day-to-day work and capacity in the other departments too. So I listed a lot of different things here, like policies, programs, ordinances, and then things that OSE provides, which are, support, resources, facilitation, funding, coordination, management. And in some cases, we are now implementing projects and programs, which is a completely new thing for the department. OSE has almost exclusively always been a planning department. And now we are taking on actually implementing programs too. So it's been really exciting, and opened up some new challenges and new opportunities. So yeah, that's sort of a little bit longer than what I have listed here, but thought it was important to note.
I find it really encouraging to hear that, and this is not the first time I've heard you say that there's a very good bonding with all the departments. My sense is that that's not something that happens just like that. And I mean, I don't know in other cities, but I would imagine that it's very easy to have a few departments that are connected well, and others that, yeah, we're busy, but so it's very encouraging to see that active engagement, because that makes a huge difference for your success. We don't have to talk about it now, but I'd be curious at some point also, what does it look like at the level of interacting? I mean, you mentioned the mayor, but the city council as well, because that changes every couple of years a little bit, and knowing how informed they are, how well, versatile they are with climate forward and so on. It's equally important.
Yeah, that's a great question. What I've learned about Mayor Valentine is that before she became mayor, is that she actually led a lot of educational sessions with her colleagues on the city council when she was a counselor. And she was really instrumental in helping to say, okay, let's help folks get sort of more informed about what all of these different kind of aspects of sustainability and resiliency are, so we can help make more informed decisions. And the council has been very supportive of OSC's efforts to date, and are really great, I think, thought partners in the ordinances that we have put forward to them, or things that we've put to vote with them or for discussion. And they're always, I think what's really, to your point about, how Somerville is unique with this, how kind of integrated sustainability and resiliency is in our departments. I think what's interesting about our relationship with the stakeholders in the community is that we get pressure from all sides to do more faster, and before Cambridge and Boston. So that's the energy that we get to come to work with every day, and we're just really lucky to have that kind of support. And we try not to take it for granted. So we're trying to move as fast as we can while being mindful of equity concerns, and being mindful that we want to be judicious about the decisions that we are making today, because they could have very widespread and large impacts on other compounding crises, like the affordable housing crisis, and displacement and affordability just more generally. So I think that that's how we're trying to balance that. And then, I think, we meet pretty regularly where we are asked to attend OSEE meetings, which is the the Open Space and Energy and Environment Committee for the City Council. So we give them updates. And I just was connecting with Councillor Mba last week, and we talked about maybe there's an opportunity for OSE to meet with the chair of that committee every so often, so that we can sort of update on what's been going on and figure out, what sort of update we can give the council. So it's more sort of like collaborative, instead of, them sort of calling us to come to the meetings, and OSE can be a little bit more proactive in how we are communicating with them. And we'll be, talking with lots of committees over the coming months, with the rental registry and the CEUCC ordinance amendment. And we're also doing, spoiler alert for later in the agenda, a very small amendment to our fossil fuel free ordinance. So we'll be talking with legislative matters a lot soon too.
Well, keep us posted if in dealing with particular council members that have a lot of overlap with Climate Forward or some of their committees, if at some point you feel like having some commission members join some meetings, or I don't know, just let us know.
Sure.
Anybody has a comment or a question regarding these extended conversations from the points in the memo?
Yeah, sorry. There's only 5 more. I'll go fast.
All right. They get shorter and shorter.
I know.
Good.
Maybe,
It's
I guess
7:46
maybe
actually. As a
know.
point of reference, it's 7:46.
Yeah. And then we're tracking micro progress to make sure we are on target for interim goals. Oh, very excited to announce. We are working with the city's web development team to create an online dashboard that will track in real time what the status is for implementing all 77 actions of
Wow.
Climate Forward,
That's
and how they relate to the Green New Deal resolution.
great.
Yeah. So that'll be great. And then our city council members who need more education. Oh, yep, in lockstep, I think we talked about that. Oh, and then this is just a note that we are working on scheduling a presentation on electrification and decarbonization and infrastructure needs from Eversource with the commission for later this fall. So I'll update folks on when we have a date. Is there advocacy needed for city departments? I wasn't
So,
sure
I'm
what this
sorry, I
question meant.
I missed that, Christine. What you
Oh,
were
sorry.
you're working with to schedule a webinar?
So this would be a meeting for city council. It would be probably at like a Thursday, 7 p.m. meeting. I'm thinking like 15-minute presentation from Eversource. It would be slides. So, if you were watching virtually, it would sort of present like a webinar. But they'll be there in person, I believe. And they would talk about efforts to decarbonize and electrify Somerville and infrastructure needs and sort of projects that are pending for the future. Yeah.
Okay,
Awesome.
we're almost done.
Yes, and then is there advocacy needed for city departments? And I wasn't totally sure what this meant. I think Liz might have asked it. So, and I don't think she's here. Or I'm sorry, Eliza asked it, and I don't think she's here. So maybe I can follow up with her later. And then is there community education needed? Yes.
Always.
And beyond general engagement aspects, are there enforcement and implementation needs we can support? I think we talked about this too. But yeah, there's lots of opportunities. So thanks for asking these awesome questions and bearing with me as we talk through all of them. I think I thought they were great, and it was helpful to reflect on everything.
Yeah. Thanks for actually going. I know you went in at length, and that's good because it's easy to read these memos really quick and then you don't retain anything. So having you explain them, I think it's good. Any commissioner has a question or comment, or a member of the public guest? Otherwise, we'll consider moving on since we have several agenda items left.
Vice Chair, we have Tom King with his hand raised.
Welcome, Tom.
Hi, thanks. You're rushing on time, so I'll make it very quick and skip a lot of compliments that I wanted to give. But if just to make a suggestion that we have so many community organizations that have participated in giving feedback on the plan, and I think those organizations would like to have a very active role in the community engagement part as well. So the more that we can do to take up some tasks to get community buy-in for various aspects of the plan, and to sort of start being enlisted right away to help with that, I think would be great. Also, we have so many artists who are excellent communicators in Somerville, and some maybe concerted efforts to enlist artists from within the various populations and communities in Somerville to help spread the word would be really good strategies for and finally third strategy is kids in the local high schools, when they bring home materials to their families. It's always very effective. Thanks.
Thank you. Good comments.
Great comments. Great comments. Thank you so much.
That's why we like to have guests. Anybody else? If not, then the next topic on the agenda was the next two, for example, are buildings and administration. So buildings, we have public school decarbonization as a topic.
Yeah, so I think we were going to have this as a standing item. We're working on so many different projects with the schools at the moment, but I think the one that I'm most excited about, and I'll just highlight it here just for time briefly, is OSE for the first time is included in the capital improvement planning process, and we're not only being considered, but we're for the first time, sustainability is a top priority of the plan. And we're, part of the decision-making team for how we're going to, what projects we're going to prioritize over the next several years. So that process is ongoing and it's been going really well so far. So there's a couple projects that we have that we're excited to try to find places for them. But they're sort of on hold for the moment while we sort of get that plan figured out. But we'll update the commission on those once we find a place for them.
Right. Any question or comment on this?
Are you able to say a little bit more about what types of things you'll be thinking about from OSU's perspective when it comes to the capital plan? Could you hear me? My microphone was down, but you could still hear.
Yeah.
You can hear better now.
Okay.
Yeah. So Courtney asked, can we speak about the types of projects that we think we'd like to see? I think they're probably ones that folks are familiar with now. It's sort of like ordinary maintenance, the new schools, things like that. The updates to City Hall in the 1895 building, kind of the modernizing the fleet and electrifying it. These are all things that we're very familiar with. And then you also have the ordinary maintenance projects like updating steam traps and improving efficiency on existing systems. So just trying to piece it all together. And we have some tools to do that. And then what was the other thing I wanted? We were also granted no-cost technical assistance from the Department of Energy Resources. And we're working with Power Options to create like a high-level decarbonization roadmap. And we're working with them to figure out what that looks like. So more to come on that, hopefully, in the coming months.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Just one follow-up on that. I know that sometimes the capital plan hasn't been inclusive of all things that, like all buildings or all types of things, because they'll be funded. Like the capital plan is funded out of one path, but if it's going to be funded out of another, it's on a different track for being identified. Do you know if like what you're it sounded like what you're talking about was fairly comprehensive. Like last year schools or 2 years ago weren't included at all because they were going to be funded in a different way.
Yeah, I think this is completely different. So I was not involved in the planning process prior, so I can only speak from my very limited experience so far. But from what I've heard, this is a very different process than what we've run in the past. And there's lots of voices in the room now, and it seems, at least to me, very comprehensive.
And do you know
I
when the
think,
plan, go ahead.
sorry. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Finish.
Just that, we do have grant funded projects coming from OSE too, like through Green Communities and through the Energy Efficiency Community Block Grant from the US DOE. And then we're applying to be in the Climate Leaders Program. So hopefully that's going to open us up to even more. So I think in terms of OSE, we have a couple tracks here, and then we have the Energy Stabilization Fund, but the Energy Stabilization Fund is wrapped up in Capital Improvement Plan.
Do you know when that capital plan draft is supposed to be circulated publicly?
I think I'm not sure. I'm sorry.
Anyone else want to join in? Okay. Then we'll move on to administration and the items here: Commission Ordinance Amendment Update and creation and assignment of subcommittees. We've spent a lot of time in the past talking about these. Let's see what we have in mind here tonight. starting with the
Yeah.
ordinance.
Yeah, this was just intended to be just a quick update, just to
Yeah.
let folks know that we are so appreciative of everybody's comments, and we're going to be incorporating them into the draft and reviewing it internally before sending it along to legal and the mayor. And we're hoping to submit it to council sometime within the next 2 months, hopefully.
I see.
So that's our plan now.
So the last one that was posted on the agenda page, that was a cleaned up version, but that's like prior to the September discussion, right? Or does that incorporate this? I'm trying to figure out the latest cleaned up. There was a version that was cleaned up and another one that had all kinds of comments on them. But I finally got.
It does not include it has not been updated per the discussion we had last month.
Okay, that's good to know, because I finally got to hear I missed that meeting and I got to see that video of it, and I can see there was a pretty substantial discussion on these topics. So it'll be great to see the next version.
Mhm.
So it sounds like we're just updating as we just did, that we're not getting into a discussion here of particular items on the ordinance update until we got the next round. Is that the sense of
Unless anybody has any, had any thoughts between then and now that they want to share, totally open.
I know there were some very good suggestions in the
Yeah.
September meeting from what I saw. So I'm looking forward to seeing the next, edited version.
I don't want to promise that we will continue to iterate this in open meeting. I would just add, because
Right.
we could end up iterating forever. So we probably will defer that to committee, and then bring it to city council. Sorry.
Yeah. Sounds good. Anybody else has a comment or a question on it? Okay, seeing none. So I'm assuming it's a similar approach to the next item, which is the creation and assignment of subcommittees. There was a lot of discussion on that. So we dealing with the same way, just to move it to offline update and then bring it up again.
Yeah, we roughly assigned people to committees, whether they like it or not. I suppose we should probably just circulate that list around to verify with everybody. That would probably be a smart move.
I think so.
Yeah, I for tonight, I sort of I took some notes on what those would look like. If anybody's just, I thought maybe, well, first, I guess I wanted to see if the subcommittees were something that people wanted to do, and if there's any sort of maybes out there, then how could we make them work for the commission? So would be open to talking about that if folks have any thoughts.
But I would say distributing the current version of the list of who's assigned to which, just to get a sanity check from everybody who's on the list. So that would be a good next step.
But Christine, did you mean discuss what the subcommittees are? Because I might have missed where we landed with the final.
So we were thinking about 4, but really prioritized 3 for the moment, and that's governance, policy, and outreach. And I think if we were to do 2, it would be governance and outreach, because we have, or maybe not even, well, it depends. I do think it would be worth planning outreach in the off season, but it'll be more important, I think, as we go into kind of event season. But we have lots of things coming up in terms of the bylaws, and the new ordinance, and you know, lots of other areas, you know, potentially note taking, what was the other thing? You know, just if slash when we do reappointments, or you know, we have to, you know, if there's anybody that, you know, leaves the commission, you know, there's some governance issues I think that would come up eventually, that we're not foreseen, we're not, you know, are not on the table right now. So I think any help with those would be like helpful. And then in terms of outreach, you know, advising and helping to draft materials, we have the commission, or sorry, the CCE coming up, the Community Choice Electricity Program. So wanted to, and we'll have to share information with the community, and you know, have more of those conversations about like, how can we like encourage people to attend events as commissioners. So I think it would be really nice to, you know, get those set up, but that's just coming from me. And, you know, it's important to note that, you know, the makeup of the commission when we did these like looked different, and it was like a different time. So if this structure doesn't work anymore, you know, I think the systems, you know, only our systems if people, you know, are bought into them and are like excited about them. And if this particular setup doesn't work anymore, then maybe we can think about another way to keep things going after the meetings end. But would love to hear people's thoughts about that.
Sorry, so, and then the fourth would be the buildings? This is just the same?
Yeah, yeah.
And, because we had discussed changing them. Which I'll just repeat what I said at that time, they do seem a little narrow to me. But I don't know if you're asking more of a broader question of, do people like the structure of working in subcommittees? And I think we should. I would say yes to subcommittees would be my simple answer to that, especially in envisioning the new larger commission that the ordinance will call for. But the actual subcommittees, yeah, I don't know. I don't need to reiterate the suggestions I made last time, but they do seem kind of limited to me, I guess, the topics. I agree with you, what you were just kind of saying. They sort of were of a moment that I would suggest either we like recreate the process that got us there, or just through discussion, maybe evolve them.
Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, if I may, we did discuss potential new structures of committees, subcommittees in the August meeting, I believe it was. Started to discuss that, and we actually talked a little bit in a circle, and like started with our existing structure, and then talked about all the different ways that we could restructure it, and then ended up talking about the existing structure, landing on that. And so in September, we kind of said like, let's stick with the existing structure, focusing on governance, the renamed administration, which is now governance, outreach, and policy. Buildings being important, but also a lot of those buildings conversations can just happen in the policy committee. And one reason to stick with just these committees right now is that there are still only 7 of us on the commission. So until we get this ordinance passed and expand the commission, you know, if we had 7 subcommittees, you know, we'd each be a subcommittee of 1. So I'm a little cautious about redesigning our subcommittees now, knowing that we're expanding the commission, and then would probably end up redoing the subcommittees again at that point. Where I think it's potentially even more valid to have more focused subcommittees at that point. So that, I think that's where, at least that's where I was coming from.
Yeah.
Is the question around which subcommittees we have something we can revisit once we have a broader commission, or is there something driving us toward having like a concrete game plan now before we expand?
I think the benefit of a concrete game plan is that Director Blades would like some help on a few things, and having a subcommittee that she knew she could turn to would be helpful.
Got it. Is there an option that makes total sense, Larry? Of course, everybody on this call wants to make Christine's life easier. Is there a one pathway where, just understanding where Julie's coming from, like I feel like the way we've worked, at least in the 2 years that I've been here, is a combination of, yes, you do this because you're part of this commission, and sometimes it's also an ad hoc, like, can you also be on this RFP committee because you're interested in this topic and it has nothing to do with your subcommittee, but you have time. So I wonder if there's an interim solution where a subgroup of us just get together on whatever is needed in the moment for Christine and OSC, and then we kind of punt the formal discussion of subcommittees until we expand. Is that like an explosive thing to suggest? I just want to make sure.
I think that's straightforward. We sort of did that in the past with the RFP reviews. And yeah, and it's I mean, spinning up an ad hoc committee like that might just be an email sent around, and the first 2 people to respond are that subcommittee, or 3 people to respond are that subcommittee. So I mean, yes, I imagine that would be feasible.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of having some structure now so that we can keep providing the support that's needed. And one thing that I think I've heard over the last several months is that being able to direct our energies and attention based on the short and medium term priorities of OSC, that where they need help, is having a bit of flexibility there is good. And then I also agree that once we have a larger commission, which is something we'll have to get, it will take some adjustment, that I think at that point it would be good to be able to adjust the plan accordingly. I mean, I suspect there'll be some learning by doing once we have a whole lot more people. So anyone else have a comment or suggestion?
Yeah, I guess I would suggest some changes right now, some specific changes, to even though these may or will, it sounds like, readjust when the committee gets larger. But I mean, that realistically, that could be, 9 months, 12 months. I mean, I don't think that's imminent. And it seems limited to me, and seems like maybe it's missing some big pieces of the city's work. So I don't know, I guess just 2 potential quick suggestions. I wonder if the outreach committee could be an outreach and equity committee. And I wonder if the buildings committee could be more like a capital investment committee. I guess it just feels like the 2 main missing pieces for me of what the city, is prioritizing and working on would be the environmental equity piece and the natural resources piece. I think that's the other one I'm really struggling with. Like, it's just to limit it just to buildings. I mean, I guess policy could maybe incorporate that, but hopefully the city would be making, and I think you guys, I see them in my neighborhood, capital investments around natural resources and ecosystem benefits and ecosystem improvements and things, and to just say buildings. Yeah, I think it's too limited, I think.
Yeah, so you mean beyond just infrastructure, being a larger version of buildings, you mean including natural resources and I forget what the other things you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, those are good suggestions.
Jump in. I think I just want to, I think those are really good suggestions too. And I think that this list is not exhaustive of the city's priorities. It reflects areas that we need help in today. And if we don't get help from the commission in these areas, from the people that want to do it, then we don't have that help. So I think that's where we're coming from with this list. And that's where we ended up last time when we had this conversation, where we all acknowledged that we can change the name of these. We did with governance. We tried to make it more attractive from administration. So more than happy to change the outreach subcommittee or engagement subcommittee to include equity. I think that's a great suggestion. In terms of if there's work that the commissioners are willing to do outside of these hours, you know, I think great, like let's form a subcommittee around that. And if you can if you can recruit somebody else to do that with you, it just makes the work that much more fun. Just to note though, that the person in OSE that did our natural resources work has her last day was today. So, you know, we do have interim staff taking that over who, and on one hand, could use more hands to help with that work as they kind of navigate this interim time period. And at the same time, may not themselves be able to provide that level of interaction that the former, you know, environmental policy manager would have been able to provide, or the future environmental policy manager would be able to provide. So that being said, I'm more than happy if there's more subcommittees and folks are willing to do that work. I think that that's great. But just to note that these are broad intentionally, because buildings can straddle municipal, residential, and commercial. Policy can be literally anything and has been literally everything. Governance can be a lot of things related to the commission, including these subcommittees, if that is enticing to anybody. And outreach is also literally anything. So, and including composting. For what it's worth, and we have some, we're hoping to spin up some programs with tree canopy later next year too, I think. So, you know, there's, and, you know, I think that there's a lot of opportunity within the structure that we have, but by all means, if there's more work that folks want to do, like we are more than happy to work with you and, you know, make being on the commission like fulfilling and worthwhile and, you know, exciting work that we're all doing.
Sounds good.
Just to follow up, just to close the loop, I'm all for the name changes that the name changes, that the implied scope changes that that Julie suggested. Those sound great to me and they make a lot of sense. And I just want to make sure that we offer Christine, like, okay, here's who you can call with something in this realm. And so having those subcommittees now or sooner would be helpful to my mind.
By the way, I sometimes get confused if we're talking about committees or subcommittees of the commission. So I have a feeling we're talking about committees that are, you know, breakdowns of the commission, and then subcommittees would be within those even more specific tasks. You know. But anyway,
can I suggest that OSE or somebody send out just a sign up sheet, like the name of the group, what kind of things are in it, and who wants to be in it. We don't need, we could like spend some time looking at it, deciding what we want to do, and you could update it that way.
And I would add in what kind of things, you know, I would say, and which are priority items in the next, like right now for OSC, right now and in the coming weeks and months, so that we get a sense of like, oh, we can jump right in and with this.
Yeah, I think we've gone through that a couple times verbally in these conversations. I'm happy to send out a list with that, but I just want to note that I can't do like a Google Doc because with a sign up sheet because of open meeting law. So it would be like my notes for these meetings sent out to everybody, and then folks would have to email me and let me know.
Sounds good.
And the priorities really are the governance, and outreach. And then with third priority being policy. And then the capital investment or buildings one.
Calling it
Important,
capital
but on
investment
hold.
is that it
for-
takes out the residential part
Yeah,
and the commercial part. So I
Yeah.
would probably push back on that. I would say that, to Ramon's point, if there's particular sub-interests within those, like on capital investment, for example, which I would consider like schools and municipal, decarbonization, we can note that, and then maybe that's the way to go forward. And I would say, Julie, too, to your point on, if it's something that you're passionate, obviously, you're passionate about natural resources, like, let's spin up another one. And if it's, one kind of point of contact on that, then, maybe that's what we can do. I also like Ari's idea too with, if there's just a subgroup of commissioners that want to do extra work, and it's 3 or less people, then like that would work too. But I think with that, if there's more than 3 people interested, then I think that's where you get the different committees idea. But yeah, are there more than 3 people interested in doing additional work from time to time?
well, everyone's gonna be on a committee, right? Or,
Not necessarily, if
Okay.
they don't want to be,
Okay.
no. Like, for example, Ramon's vice chair and Larry's chair, and I'm ex officio. I think we might be on them, but I don't think it's an expectation that everybody's on one. That's sort of why I mentioned, hey, like if this doesn't work, it's okay. Like, don't worry, we don't have to do this. And I think that's where Ari was coming in with that kind of interim solution of, if there's like 3 people that want to help out more on a variety of things, great. That would be really helpful.
I feel
but
like
if not, that's also
we've
okay.
all expressed interest in being on different committees in the moment, depending on when and what. So like you're saying right now, Christine, there are 2 that would be really helpful for you in OSE. And so I think we should say today there are 2 committees, or there are 3 people that want to be on these 2 committees. And that I feel like we shouldn't spend more time talking about. We should put it out there. People could say yes or no, and we'll take it from there. I don't think we're going to get much further, especially because we're missing a couple of people, and see if those 2 high priority ones get populated. I know, I'll take a look at it for my own interest. Everybody knows I'll be on a building one or capital projects whenever that is the right time and it's going to be useful. And if I could do another one and before then, based on this, I'll take a look when I could.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And I'll take a moment to say that it's 8:20, and the next topic has a few breakdowns. I'm not sure if that was intended to be something that we'll just make a few comments and updates on them, but I think based on what Courtney just said, it might be a good idea to then agree to where we just landed, and I think the idea of sending out something that summarizes a little bit where people are at will be good to get feedback back. Any reason not to move forward to the policy last segment?
Only thing is we need to take public comment.
Yes. Of the people who are still in the meeting, anybody has a comment or suggestion or something they would want to add to the conversation?
Awesome.
Seeing none.
Okay.
So how do we want to handle the policy? I mean, the items that are listed on the agenda, let me just,
I can pull them up, Ramon, if you want.
Yeah.
I can share my screen.
no, I see them. I'm just going to mention them quickly and we can decide what do we want to do with them. The Massachusetts Stretch Code updates, rental registry and energy disclosure ordinance focus groups, community choice electricity updates, and local legislative efforts. Obviously, we can't spend too many minutes on each one of them because, well, we'll go over a certain amount of beyond the 8:30, but How do you want to?
Yeah, I'll go
do
quick.
brief updates?
Yeah, these are pretty quick updates. So for the stretch code, just to note, we every 2 years, the Department of Public Utilities updates the stretch code. They put out draft updates. We've submitted public comment that was informed by a conversation with the Department of Energy Resources and our experience in development review that Josh manages. So I just wanted to note that those comments are public. And
Is that ongoing right now, that review process?
yes. Yeah, I expect that they would finalize it sometime in December, and then they would be effective maybe January or July, depending. And then for the rental registry and energy disclosure ordinance, we completed the focus groups. So thank you all who participated in those. It was really helpful, and we are compiling the results of that and all of the interviews that were conducted, and it will inform the ordinance that eventually gets submitted to council before the end of the year.
Okay, I was gonna say, what's a timeline before the end of the year? Okay.
So first conversations with the council, and that likely wouldn't be until early 2025, but it will be submitted before the end of the year.
Okay.
And the CCE, the Community Choice Electricity Program, just to note for folks that there is a mailer going out soon with the new rates for the new plan. That's 37 months. So of stable locked in rates with additional renewable energy. So we'll do social media and press around that, so folks know that there's a mailer going out, what it will look like, what it will say, and you know what it means. So just wanted to note that. And then for local, oh yeah, and I think we mentioned these already, but local legislative efforts, of course, CEUCC, or just to sort of, I noted this here just to sort of summarize things that are coming up, particularly around policy or governance, if you know, for folks, and buildings actually, for all of those, and outreach. Depending on which subcommittees we wind up spinning up, these efforts could touch all of that. It's we have the Commission on Energy Use and Climate Change Ordinance, which Josh has nicknamed CEUCC, and I thought that was amazing. We've been searching all of these years for, at least I have, for a way to pronounce this, and Josh has finally figured it out. And then the Climate Forward 2024 adoption for the City Council. And then the fossil fuel free amendment, just to note here that there is in the ordinance a place where it says it would be effective on or before 180 days after our application is accepted, or January 1st, 2025, whichever comes sooner. But January 2025 is pretty much around the corner, and it's best practice to give folks 6 months notice with building code changes. So we are going to, and we haven't heard on our application yet from the DOER. We've been working with them, meeting with them, and responding to questions, but have no word yet on whether our application will be accepted or not. So we're going to ask the council to amend that January 1st date and just omit that part of it. So it would be effective 6 months after our application is accepted, or when our home rule petition is approved by the state. And then for the rental registry and energy disclosure ordinance, again, I mentioned that we're going to submit it by the end of the year. That's the plan right now.
Okay. Thanks for the yes.
Going back to community choice electricity, can you remind me what the default renewable supply is going to be?
Yes, let me pull that up. It's going to take me a second. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Sorry, I don't mean the rate itself. I just mean the renewables percentage above RPS.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look it up.
Sorry.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Was it 20% above the state mandate?
That is correct. It is 25%. 20%.
Thank you, Josh.
There's a lot there, but we're moving out of time. But anybody has a comment or suggestion on these topics, and we can pick it up next month as well, whether in the commission or the remaining participants from the public.
Oh, sorry, it's currently 20%. But I think we're doubling it to 40, if I'm not
Oh.
mistaken.
That sounds right. 20, okay.
Yeah.
So it's 40.
Small but major clarification. Yeah. Thanks. We also have at some point the meeting notes to approve from a couple of months that we do have. Are we ready to move, or any further questions?
Yes, I did just confirm it as an additional 40%.
Great.
Yes, so I think the meeting minutes were circulated by Julia. I can also post them if that would be helpful for folks.
So we had the July and the August minutes circulated. Has everyone had a chance to look at them and read them? Or do we need to spend time waiting?
I've read them. I'm ready.
All right.
Curious too.
Does that mean we're ready to move to adopt? Anybody
I move to adopt the July and August 2024 meeting minutes.
I second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, who can I have the names? Folks?
Courtney was the first.
Courtney
Okay.
moved it, and Ari seconded it. So having said that, then all in favor, raise your hand or say yes.
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 All right. In that case, unanimously approved. So we'll have the September meeting notes at the next meeting, and maybe even the October notes as well, so we can catch up a little bit. That brings us to the last bit, which is if there's any new business or suggestions or ideas that anybody wants to bring up.
Did we take public comment on the policies?
I asked for comments.
You did? Okay.
But at least I think I did, but I didn't see any hands but it's not too late if somebody wants to open up a conversation. There's only two people left, Tom and Seda. Okay. Seeing none, any new business proposed? If anybody has it. And seeing none, we may be done with this meeting then. Thank you. Thank you for the public participants who attended and who remained to the very end. And thanks for the commissioners who were here for the very end as well. So we will be in touch and have a good month.
Thank you
all
all.
so much.
Bye.
Thank you, Josh. Bye.
Bye.